It's kind of incredible how fast things are moving, isn't it? Like just the past year, the jumps in AI reasoning, even coding, it's genuinely surprised a lot of folks, even experts.
Oh, absolutely. Predicting even, 6 months out feels like guesswork sometimes.
Totally.
And, well, this rapid progress has led to something they're calling a capability overhang.
Capability overhang.
Yeah, think of it like our AI models can do more than our current apps are really set up to let them do. There's this untapped potential.
Right, the tools are ahead of the applications in some ways.
Exactly. So the mission for our deep dive today is to explore this agentic web concept. We want to understand how it's supposed to, bridge that gap and really unlock what these advanced AIs can do.
Okay, sounds good. So, to get us started, what is the Agentic Web, fundamentally? What's the core idea they're putting forward?
Okay, let's unpack that. So the main idea is about building an ecosystem, really, a place where we can hand off increasingly complex work to AI agents.
Right.
And importantly, it's not just about making the AI models themselves better at reasoning, though, that's still happening, of course. It's also, maybe even more critically, about creating the surrounding infrastructure, the stuff agents need to actually operate effectively out in the world and tackle those big tasks.
That's a really key distinction. So it's looking beyond just the agent's brain to the whole environment it operates in.
Precisely.
Okay, so what are some of the main pieces of that environment, that ecosystem, that are maybe missing right now? And how does this agentic web idea plan to fill those gaps?
Well, a huge one is memory. Right now, interacting with most AI agents feels very transactional. You ask, get answers, and then it's kind of forgotten.
Yeah, there's no real persistence, no learning from past conversations or tasks in a deep way.
Exactly. They don't hold on to information or even remember their own steps over longer periods, not like biological memory works anyway.
And what's really interesting there is how they're thinking about agentic memory. It's not about perfect recall like a database.
Right.
It's more inspired by our memory, maybe a bit fuzzy sometimes, imprecise, but with these cognitive tools built in for finding and refining information when we need it.
Like association or reconstruction.
Exactly, not just a simple lookup. We piece things together.
Yeah. And this whole memory challenge gets harder because of, current technical limits, like context windows, how much info the AI can juggle at once.
That's a bottleneck.
And the fact that the information an agent might need is often scattered all over the place in different formats, different systems. It's fragmented.
It's like trying to assemble something complex when you can only see a few pieces at a time and the rest are locked in different boxes.
Good analogy. So one specific technique they mentioned to tackle this is called structured RAG.
Right, structured retrieval, augmented generation.
Yeah, and they framed it as biologically inspired. The idea is to impose more structure on the information you feed the AI.
So instead of just a big blob of text, you give it structure.
Right, so it can supposedly recall things more precisely and, crucially, reason over much larger volumes of information than it could otherwise handle.
And they mentioned the GitHub repo for this is live, which is interesting. It suggests it's moving beyond just theory.
Definitely feels more concrete. Now, related to memory, especially in work contexts, there's the whole issue of entitlements.
Ah, yes. Whose memory is it? What can a work agent access versus a personal one? Data privacy, access controls. It gets complicated fast.
Super complicated. Okay, so memory is one big piece. What else is needed for this agentic web to really, take off?
Well, another huge one is interoperability.
Yeah.
Protocols.
Meaning
for agents to really use their planning skills to coordinate complex actions, the digital world needs to be more, wired up for them. They need ways to talk to different services and resources easily.
Right, like if an agent needs to book travel, then check inventory, then maybe schedule a delivery. It needs to interact with all those different systems.
Precisely. And those systems need to understand the agent, and the agent needs to understand them. It requires common ground.
Okay, so that's where these new protocols come in. They mentioned MVP.
Yes, MCP. They also mentioned A to A, agent to agent, I believe. And the analogy they used, which I think is quite helpful, is comparing MCP to HTTP back in the early web days.
Okay. How so?
Well, HTTP was this really simple foundational protocol. It just let browsers ask servers for stuff, basically. Get content.
Right. It connected things.
Exactly. And MCP is kind of envisioned like that, a simple foundational way for agents to connect with and use all sorts of services and resources out there.
Simple's key then.
Very key. And also open. They really stress the importance of keeping these protocols open standards.
Why is that so critical?
Well, think about the web. It could have become a bunch of closed proprietary networks. like AOL or CompuServe back in the day.
Right, walled gardens.
Exactly. But open protocols like HTTP allowed anyone to build a website, anyone to build a browser. It led to this explosion of innovation because it wasn't centrally controlled.
So the worry is the agentic web could become dominated by a few big players if the protocols aren't open.
That's the concern. Openness allows for what they called permissionless innovation. It means anyone with an idea can build something on top of this infrastructure. It taps into everyone's imagination, not just a few companies.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Fostering a much wider range of possibilities. Okay, so we've got better memory on the horizon, hopefully, and these open protocols for connection. How does this start to tackle that capability overhang we mentioned at the start?
Yeah, how does it unlock that potential?
What are some examples, maybe even early ones, of this starting to happen?
Well, they gave some pretty powerful examples in the discussion. Think about something like medical diagnosis.
Okay.
The best AI models today can analyze medical scans or patient data with a sophistication that, well, it often surpasses what's easily available to billions of people worldwide.
Right, there's a huge gap between the cutting edge and widespread access.
Exactly. The Agentic Web with better memory and connectivity could potentially help bridge that gap, making those advanced diagnostic capabilities much more accessible.
That's a compelling vision. And then there was that story, the anecdote about the 16-year-old daughter.
Oh yeah, that was incredible. She used AI, apparently, to solve some complex medical image processing problems.
In minutes.
Yeah, in minutes. A task, the speaker said, would have taken him days back when he was a graduate student.
And the really striking part was she had, like, no prior coding experience.
None. And the AI didn't just give an answer, it gave a full solution with, 27 citations? Including medical journals.
Right.
And working Python code.
Yeah, fully functional code. It's just, wow.
That story perfectly illustrates the potential here. It's about radically lowering the barrier for tackling complex problems.
Suddenly, you don't necessarily need years of specialized training to make progress on something really difficult.
Right. It democratizes problem solving in a way.
They also mentioned another example, didn't they? High school students.
Yes. Building a functional app for social entrepreneurship, again, with minimal direct instruction, just using these AI-powered development tools.
It really drives home how accessible these new building blocks are becoming, almost permissionless, like you said about the protocols.
It feels a bit like maybe the early days of PCs, but with AI baked in from the start, accelerating everything.
And it's not just anecdotes, right? They mentioned a metric.
Ah, yes. A 215% increase in daily active users across the Microsoft agent ecosystem.
Which suggests people are actually starting to use these agentic capabilities more and more. It's not just theoretical potential.
Right. It's starting to gain real traction.
So ultimately, it feels like the promise of the agentic web is about freeing up human potential, really. Offloading the complex, the tedious, the time-consuming stuff to AI agents.
So we can focus more on the creative parts, the strategic thinking, the things that are uniquely human.
Okay, so wrapping this up then. Our deep dive into that Microsoft discussion points to the agentic web as this evolving ecosystem.
Built on two main pillars, it seems. One is much better agent memory, getting closer to persistent, context-aware interaction.
Right, moving beyond those one-off transactions.
And the second is the development of these open, ubiquitous protocols like MCP to let agents connect and interact seamlessly with everything out there.
And putting those together, the potential impact feels pretty huge. It's not just tweaking things. It feels like a fundamental shift.
Yeah, a shift in how we interact with technology, how we solve problems. There's definitely a buzz around it, almost like the early internet excitement.
That feeling of a wide open landscape, ripe for that permissionless innovation you mentioned.
It really leaves you thinking, doesn't it, about the broader implications. What does a world look like where really complex problem solving becomes, democratized? Accessible to almost anyone.
What new kinds of creativity could that unlock? What global challenges could we tackle differently?
Exactly. What new possibilities emerge when you put these incredibly powerful tools into everyone's hands? Maybe, digging into these ideas further, even checking out that structured RG repo they mentioned, might spark some really interesting thoughts for you.